morning. Oh, it's on. Okay. It is so, I told you my voice was very big. Is this too loud for anybody? Is that all right? Okay, all right. So thanks so much for being here. I am delighted to have this opportunity to be with what feels like for me on numbers of levels, family. So being in Corvallis feels wonderful because of my dear mentor is the one who spoke with you all last night. And so Dr. Larry Roper was the person, so this just came to me too. Dr. Larry Roper was the person who, when I was an undergraduate, like some of you are in the room, he was the one who was going to hire me as a graduate assistant. And I was looking so forward to working with him. And so I'm just delighted to come behind him and continue our conversation. I want to say thank you to the planning committee for this day. Please join me in appreciating them. Give them a round of applause. Yes, thank you. And so I get to today, and I thank Robin for all of her work and all of the other folks who tried to get me over email. I believe if there is a devil, it is email. And so just trying to get through all of that and folks who kept in touch with me. And so our title is Student Unions, the Center for Building More Inclusive Campus Communities. As I was preparing to come in today, I really got clear that my journey in higher education, my finding my voice in higher education started in the student center. Before I even moved into a residence hall, I had gone into the student union. That I was involved as a student in student government and in university programming and in the homecoming committees. That was where I began to find my voice. That was where I began to be included. And it was the foundation for the work that I do today, some 35 years later. So I am honored to be with the body of folks who are laying the foundation for the next generation of leaders and creating those spaces on our campuses. I've got about 30 minutes or so to try to begin this conversation with you. And so I know that we kind of wrap up this evening. I trust that we had a wonderful and powerful day yesterday. But what I want to do, I believe that communities begin by building relationships. And so thank the folks who gave us this wonderful breakfast, right? So let's thank them. This breakfast was real. All the food service people who made it possible, right? And so I know we're full. We got that breakfast thing on. Already. And so what I want to invite you to do is take a minute, look around you, right? And see if there are 3 to 4 people that you haven't met yet. Well, hold on. So I'm going to give you clear instructions. Look around you, see if there are 3 or 4 people that you haven't met yet. I'm going to have you say good morning to them. And then I want you to just shift your seat, if you're able, to sit with someone that you did not know when you came in the room. Right? So shift your seat after you've met 3 or 4 people and sit with someone you did not know. Go. Wonderful. All right, begin to find a partner. Have a seat. Find a partner. Have a seat. Everybody needs a partner. Perfect. Excellent. All right. If you can hear my voice, clap 1 time. Hear my voice, clap 2 times. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Take a deep breath. Let it out. All right. So Give your partner a high five if you're able. Give them a high five. All right? Perfect. All right. Excellent. So, folks, if you did like this and you slapped the hand, you got a partner. You did like this and you slapped air, you ain't got no partner. Right? If you did like this and you slapped more than one hand, you got too many partners. Now, that's not my business. I'm fine with that. But not for this morning. I need you to just be with one person right now, because we've only got about 25 minutes, folks. So, is there anyone who needs a partner? Somebody to talk to real quick. All right? So look around and see if you see a hand. See a hand that's up, and I'm going to ask you to join those hands that are up if you're able to get there. Thank you very much. All right. Now, folks, I'm doing this because one of the things that's important about this conversation is that it must be a conversation. Building inclusive communities requires all of our voices, and it is very easy to hide in this space. I know that I have a follow-up session after this where we'll get to go to some deeper levels of discussion. But now I got all y'all, so I need all y'all in it, okay? On purpose is what I'm doing here. So let me talk about my intentions for the next 30 minutes. It's one, to deepen the level of authentic conversation about and across difference. Now, how many of us know we can be honest without being fully authentic? Like I can tell the truth, but not like I like that blouse, I wouldn't wear with that skirt, right? Now, I didn't lie, but how many of you would agree that often these conversations are the I like that blouse conversation? Yeah, so we often in this space, in this discussion, in this time around diversity and inclusion, we are trying to figure out and navigate what's okay to say, what's not to say, how have these voices in our head that say you can't say that. Am I making sense? You getting that? And what my hope is today will be about going deeper in truth-telling. If you have a moment where something is coming up and you're thinking, I can't say that, say that. And watch what happens in the room. We'll go to a deeper level of authentic engagement. Make sense? The next things are to engage the tools for building a learning community, to invite us to consider the components of inclusive action. What I'm talking about here, folks, is why this matters in the context of higher education. What is our role as a part of the higher education enterprise, of the higher education vocation, right? What's our role and why does diversity and inclusion matter? And then finally, I just want to offer you a couple of things in order for us to do this work real for this time that we must engage in, all right? That's where we're going. So you're going to have about a few minutes with your new high five buddy. Give him another high five. Connect with him, right? All right. This is your Building More Inclusive Communities high five buddy, all right? So all day long, just high five them, right? Just remember and keep connecting. Here's where you're going. You're going to first introduce yourself. You're going to share with them your gender pronoun and your role. What do you do, right? And I want you contextually in this conversation. So what do I do? What brings me to ACUI? And what does that have to do with diversity and inclusion? Right? How does that matter given my role? So that's why I want you to do that part first. Then I want you to talk about kind of what's up, what's got your energy as we get started. You might still be reeling from last night. Some of us are in spaces from what's happening in our world. Give voice to that. Talk about what it feels like to be in the conversation about diversity and inclusion with this group of people. That's the I wouldn't wear it with that skirt conversation. What's the feeling as you really consider having that discussion here today? That makes sense? So not diversity matters, we work on a diverse campus and it's inclusion and yeah. No. I want you to really get at what it feels like in your gut to have a real discussion about your understanding, the dynamics, what comes up as you have that discussion. Make sense? You got that? And then the last thing that I want you to pay attention, last two things are, what do you see on your campus, particularly in your function as a person who works in unions, that has this conversation be necessary? We know the conference planning team said we needed to do a day on this. What do you see that have them be right on in that? Now, a fine answer to that is, I don't know. Like, I get along with people get along with me, my campus, we're doing fine. We have not had it. That is a fine. If that's your truth, speak that. In order for us to get to the next level of authentic engagement, we must tell the truth. You got me? And then any hopes that you have for the day. That's what you get to do. You got 5 minutes. Have a conversation with your partner. Go! Thank you so much. I am so excited about the energy that's in the room. Folks, I want you to know that everything that I'm doing this morning is on purpose. There is content in the process, right? So your voices matter in this discussion. So nothing that I'm doing is about filling time. I don't have a problem filling time. I'm a black preacher. I could have filled this hour quite easily, right? What I'm intending to do is help you to build capacity to be in the conversation. And it requires practice, all right? So I know that we've only got a little bit of time, but I wanted to ground you in some key things. First, it is important to get present in this discussion. Wherever you are, whatever is up, just allow yourself to be there. Then to get connected to where you are affectively. So how do I feel about moving into these conversations? We must be, for the next round, as emotionally intelligent as we are cognitively intelligent, all right? So do I feel comfortable engaging race, but not comfortable engaging religion? Do I shy away from conversations around gender or gender identity, but feel comfortable engaging conversations about class or ability? Where am I comfortable? Where do I have anxiety? And what does that feeling do? How does that feeling show up in my behavior? Am I making sense? So I'm intentionally asking you, what's the feeling about having authentic engagement so that you know that there must be affective competence. You must get competent in the affective space. The next thing I asked you to think about then was what's been your experience with this discussion? And only because of time, I'm not going to have you put them in the room, but I'm hoping that you were able to talk about what you see on your campuses and in your day-to-day interactions that necessitate this discussion. If you were not able to come up with anything, your job today is to listen, to really learn what is happening that I need to get so that I understand why this matters. Is that making sense? You're not wrong because you don't see why. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that in my world, I'm not seeing why we need to be in this discussion. So it's important that you spend time asking, talking, and listening to others so that we get clear. Why am I asking you that? How many of you have taken a class, one of those general ed requirements, and didn't feel like you needed that? And so you're in that class and like, why am I here? Why do I have to take it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to be here. Just get me to my major stuff. Anybody know what I'm talking about? What's your energy when you're in that space? It's low, it's not connected, it's like, please let this be done, right? Here we go again, right? I'm not paying. And when we come into these conversations and we feel like it's a general ed requirement, we show up with that energy. So it is important that you understand that this is a part of your major requirement in order to do the work you need to do in student unions for the next round. Am I making sense? So how do I get clear about why I need to take this class? I must be able to look around and see how I'm going to benefit, or at least begin to ask questions of others so that I can learn that. Is that landing for you? All right. So as we move into this discussion, then you get to consider, so what do I want to get out of this space? What do I need to learn? What are the things that are important to me to understand as I move forward in this discussion? That's the grounding before we even get into the conversation. I don't want us today to feel like the diversity and inclusion conversation is about somebody else. It's not about somebody else. It is about us, and our voice and our perspective matter in that. Is that all right? Really clear? All right, so part of the reason I'm not up there is because I know that I can be preachy. And, I can't help that. The preacher's going to always be in the room. But I didn't come to be a preacher. I came to be the inviter into the conversation. Does that make sense? Is that landed for you? So that's why I need you in it. I'm going to move through quickly because I don't believe that people learn this stuff by just being talked at. I don't think that's the best way to engage it. But I do believe I can introduce some points that you can then talk about more later. Does that make sense? So that's where we're going to go, and I'm going to try to do this in the next 10 minutes. First, what I'm wanting to do is not have you take for granted as you engage these discussions, you've got to get started. How many of you are theater people? Any theater people in the room, right? Any athletes, right? Any athletes, folks, any workout people who work out at least once a year, something like, I try to get in the gym once a year, right? How about musicians? Any musicians in the room? All right? Yes, all right? So, how many of us know, I've been using for the last few years these analogies. How many of us know in all three of those areas, we must practice? And if we don't practice, we don't show up effective in the performance, on the field, in the game. Does that make sense? And so today is about a day of practice. But getting started is about the warm-up. How many of us know we have to warm up? You've got to do your scales, you got to do your stretches, right? Because if you're not doing that stuff, you'll hurt yourself, right? You can do harm. So you must do the warm-up to get people ready to be in this. You must then create a learning community and then invite folks to understand what's some key stuff we need to get. And finally, I want to talk about inclusive excellence and some key things for us for this next round if we're going to really make our student unions, our campus unions, more inclusive. We're going to go on a fast ride. Anybody been on a roller coaster? This is about to be a fast ride. So buckle up and take a deep breath, all right? So the first thing I want to introduce then is this key concept. That is context before content. Context before content. What are the things that inform our context? What informs your context? Anybody, just say it. Experience. What else? Place, where we are. Right, what else? People around you, right. So I want you to pay attention to, folks, lots of times we move into this discussion right into the content without engaging the context. So how is the context different at Oregon State than it is at University of Oregon? How is the context different at Portland than it is in Canada, right? How is this discussion different given the context? The other things that inform the context is our time in what's going on in the world, right? How many of you would say this has been a big diversity year? Lots of stuff have happened around diversity this year. I have noticed as I travel a lot through the airport. Anybody do any flying, right? You go to the airport, there are these big TV monitors. And on there, you'll see CNN, sports, and those kinds of things. What I have noticed in this last year, and particularly as we move into a presidential election time, there is more conversations in the media about issues of difference. So whether that is Caitlyn Jenner, whether that is Baltimore, whether that is Ferguson, all of these things. I saw a session the other day where there was a panel talking about white privilege. I said, where am I? I wasn't at a conference. I was in the airport, right? And so I want you to imagine, when the sports is up there, when there's a flood that's up there, people turn and say, isn't that off? Da, 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 da. White privilege. And faces are down. People don't know what to say. Can I say anything to anybody? So the capacity to engage the conversation is one that's up right now in terms of us looking at context. Am I making sense? So the context before the content, the other piece of context I want you all to get is a big thing that informs your context is your length of time on the planet. That would be your age. And when you entered this discussion, what has been truth since you've been around? Am I making sense? And so many of us are engaging in this conversation across generations. And that for some folks, as we begin to talk about some of this diversity and inclusion stuff, for some folks it's, when I started this work, it wasn't none of y'all here. Now we got one over here, one over there, one over there, and we couldn't even say that word when I first started. And for others in the conversation, it's look how far we need to go, right? We're here but what about? But what about? Am I making sense? So paying attention to the context that we're engaging and considering that before we move into any content. The content of diversity is huge. When most folks think about diversity, in the U.S. in particular, in this current time, the first thing that comes to mind is what? All right, we're going to have to start all over. Y'all going to miss the next session if y'all can't say it loud. The first thing that folks come to mind is what? Race. And when we're talking about race, who are we talking about? Race. So who's in that conversation largely? Black and white. Black and white, right? So if you're not black and white, good luck. Maybe we'll find some time. Maybe we won't. Now, how many of us know that diversity is about more than race is about more than black and white? And diversity is about more than race. So why then, in 2015, is that still where we go? Why do we still go to black and white and race? Why? Who said it? Our history and context. We have a particular race history in the U.S. and a narrative around that in the U.S., right? And it impacts today how we navigate this discussion. So I want to say to you, if we're going to create those inclusive unions, more inclusive campus spaces, we must be willing to do race. Now repeat after me. Jamie did not say that race was more important than other issues of difference. Say it again. Jamie did not say that race was more important than other issues of difference. Okay, don't lie on me. I didn't say that. Okay? What often happens is when I show up in this package and I say that we must work race, what people hear is that I said that race is more important. And I did not say that. I said, given our context and our history, that we must be willing to do race. And that means own race as a dynamic that's in the room, that informs in how we engage. And so what does it mean for me to be a racialized being, right? And even particularly on our campuses that are hanging their hats on international and globalization, because we got internet, we got 1,500 different languages and people from campuses all over. We are diverse. And we're hanging our hats on globalization, but not engaging the race dynamic that comes with that, right? And so folks can come to the U.S. from a non-raced context, get here, and get raced. Did you get that? So the way that I make sense of myself or my identity or in the world is not through the lens of race. It's ethnicity, it's class, it's really other things. But when I get here, given the context, I get raced as an international person and then have to navigate what that means, often with very little engagement, all right? So race must be done, but it must be done understanding that the narrative has left out all other minoritized folks of color, right? So often I'll hear Latino, Native American, folks of API descent, multiracial folks often feel silenced in the conversation because of the narrative of black-white. We have to do the work to expand the race conversation, to acknowledge who's been erased in the conversation, as well as then who often gets silenced in the discussion, right? So race matters. Big deal with context before content. In order to do that, you must be able to understand your context. So I often would like to go to people's website. What do you all say about you? And this is what we say about unions. This is what we're doing. The union is the community center, serving college students and faculty, staff, and alumni and guests, whatever form or name it takes, as a college or union, an organization, offering a variety of programs, activities, and services in order to create, plan for community life at college. So I want you to get, this is what we say we do. So I always invite folks to go back to what is your mission? And so how does diversity and inclusion fit into that? The next thing that you say is, this is what community is. Community is a broad vision for a campus life that allows all groups and individuals to learn, grow, and develop to their best potential in a challenging yet safe environment. I invite you folks who are at the ACUI Region 4 conference to check out what y'all say. because this is what you say. And that is why this day matters. Because you can't do that if you're not doing this. It cannot happen. So it involves creating a safe learning community. And what are our learning community agreements? How do we create, whether we are in student life, whether we are working with student organizations, Greeks, whether we are working with the union programming board, whether we are working with the event staff, whether we're working with housekeeping or food service folks, how are we creating a space where we recognize that the dynamics of difference are in the room? They will be in the room. How are we starting our first meeting saying, how will we agree to be across difference? We often will do this kind of work at a leadership retreat or workshop. That make sense? You go into space and say, what's our guidelines? What's our learning norms? And we do that work. We have an amazing retreat. We'll have an amazing workshop, and then leave the room and leave these agreements in the room and wonder why our campus communities and cultures don't change. You must take the learning agreements outside of the room and operate out of those when you are doing your everyday work. Does that make sense? Are you getting that, folks? So open and honest communications. How many of you have been in a meeting with students, as students, or with your staff, where somebody has said something and everybody just went? Who's seen that? Who's been there? So there's silence, right? The air is sucked out of the room, and the leader's like, okay, we just got to keep moving, right? And if you are the person who takes risk, if you know that in this moment what needs to happen or what needs to get said is something just happened in the room and it happened after you said that, you must take the risk and say it. You must be open and honest in your communication and say it. You must practice these things beyond the training moment. Is that landing for you folks? Are you getting that? I keep going back to campuses and they keep saying, well, Jamie, we were here. You were here, we had a great day, but when you left, nothing happened. And I say, what did you do? And they say, well, you know, they were supposed to. It's always them, right? I want you to pay attention to what you do in order to continue to create a learning environment. Say learning environment. So it has to be a safe space for people not to know stuff and to be able to say the wrong stuff. I was with a group of faculty yesterday. I invited them to do introductions. I said, share your name, your gender pronoun, and I was with a group of faculty who did not know what a gender pronoun was. I said, so they said to me, well, I know what a gender pronoun is, but I don't know, why would I need to say that? Am I making sense? And so it needs to be, and what was wonderful about it was the room was safe enough for them to say that. And so we have to be able to create spaces where it's okay not to know. Last things, I know we're at time. About 10 years ago, campuses got clear that diversity programs were not enough. And we needed to create campuses where institutions were looking at how they were shifting culture and preparing for institutional change as our demographics are changing. Inclusive excellence then became one of the terms of the day that come from the National Association of Chief Diversity Officers. Many of your campuses will have a chief diversity officers today when 10 years ago the senior person doing the diversity work was in student life or in student unions. Does that make sense? So you getting that? And so today with chief diversity officers, here's what they're saying must happen for inclusive excellence. That it must be a focus on students, faculty, and staff, intellectual and social development. That it's not enough for us to take a diversity class or have a diversity requirement. We must also have opportunities to learn and engage socially across difference, right? Just because I know someone is Jewish or Muslim doesn't mean I know how to engage them around their religious difference. Does that make sense? So social and intellectual development, that we must purposefully utilize institutional resources in order to enhance that learning. So if you say that diversity is one of the big 5 of your vision or mission or value statement, and you look at the training program, and you've got an hour for diversity for your student leaders, it is sending a message, right? If you say that diversity and inclusion is a part of your value, high value, and you have spent $100 on that looking for the cheapest way that you can get this thing done and checked off, it is sending a message. I say to folks every day, if you want to know what I value, check out my checkbook and my calendar, right? So how does it show up in what you are doing every day? The last two things are attention to difference and the value it adds to the academy. Being really clear that if we don't do diversity well, the value of the degree from our place goes down. And when we do it well, the value of that degree goes up because we're graduating folks who are ready to lead for the 21st century, where diversity is inevitable. Does that make sense? Are you getting that? And then finally, a welcoming and inclusive environment engages diversity in the service of not only student, but organizational learning. I loved when I went to ACUI's website that I could get all that information in multiple languages. And that hasn't always been the case. So we have grown, we have expanded, we have continued to learn around how we are engaging in a more inclusive community. Does that make sense to you folks? So that your camp, how is your union different because of diversity and inclusion? What did you learn this year that has you do this activity or this experience in a different way? How have we created spaces that are more accessible or more universally designed in our programming area, right? So that folks know that you were expecting them, right? That's what it means for our institutions to grow and change. Does that make sense to you folks? So again, it is focus on student, staff, intellectual, and social, purposeful utilization of resources. Check that out. You all get to think about, so where do we need to pay attention? How it adds value to the academy. So some of us need to go back and help our institutions understand how this matters for the degree and how it's not just about, oh, it's a good social thing to do. And then the last thing is there, how have we grown and how will we change? Last piece, and you get to decide whether we're going to get to spend more time together today or whether you're just going to spend more time together in lots of the other great sessions, continuing to think about these last four things. They are, repeat them after me, awareness of self, awareness of others, courageous action, and collaboration. Awareness of self, awareness of others, courageous action, and collaboration. The work for the next round requires those four things. How aware am I of me? How aware am I of others? Am I willing to take the courageous action to say what is the unsaid? What am I uncomfortable with? What am I afraid of? And who do I need to be in collaboration with in order to continue to deepen my learning and engagement? When I started this work back in as an undergraduate student at Slippery Rock State College, I was committed to ending racism. I was going to end racism before I left Slippery Rock. Well, so much for that. Then I left there and I went to Indiana University and I discovered sexism. Who knew, right? So I was going to end sexism before I left Indiana. All right? Still working on that too, right? What I'm saying is, folks, that why this says Inclusive Communities 2015 is every generation has its opportunity to do work to make it better, right? And so I got clear about this beautiful thing about being over 50 is that you learn some stuff, hopefully, right? And what I learned was mine may not be to fix it, but mine is to leave it better than I found it. And so I want to invite you to think about how are you leaving your campuses more inclusive than you found it. That's the work of college unions. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful.